Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leader in rushing, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. It is January 21st. We're going to dive into some Green Bay Packer news. We got a few more updates to get with you guys. We have a new interview set to take place. I'm not sure what day it's taking place, but we've got a new interview set to take place for the defensive coordinator position. That would make 3 now. Again, that doesn't mean they're going to go with either of these 3, but these are the early candidates. Obviously, over 1265, they want to get some extra information on these cats and see if they may be a fit for their defensive coordinator positions. One guy already been interviewed for a Packers DC before. A couple other guys maybe outside of the building, a little bit different approach. One of which that we're going to talk about today, head coaching experience. How I think we'd all say it didn't go very well. That doesn't mean he's not going to be a DC once again, or a good DC once again, as he was a great DC in Philadelphia. Obviously good enough to get him a head coaching job. That says a lot, right? We're also going to talk about roster moves. Trayvon Diggs, the information there that we've got on whether he will be a Green Bay Packer this year or not. We'll give you the latest on those roster moves and a couple of players that were a little bit intriguing, according to our draft board here at PTA in the past. And then we're going to talk about the poll question. You guys, we got a poll question up here, okay? Of these 3 DCs that's being interviewed, let us know which one you would choose. Again, it's just those 3, just from the ones that's been scheduled to interview. I wanted to narrow it down and kind of see who's the fan favorite. Okay, I know I've got my favorite. I want to know which one you guys would rather have of the 3 defensive coordinators that are, or defensive coordinator candidates that are set to be interviewed. So get your poll question answer in there, get your vote in. And then we're going to talk about the youngest team here in a minute. I sent a tweet out this morning. We're going to dive into that a little bit too, and kind of troubleshoot it and talk about the problem around the narrative of having the youngest team in the league year in and year out, and how the conversation seems to get kind of steered in different directions when you point that out. For whatever reason, there is a portion of the fan base that don't want to hear anything other than it's okay to be the youngest team in the league. So we'll talk about that as well. Before we do, if you would do that YouTube stuff, hit like, hit subscribe, click the bell icon. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your morning. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you, talking Packers on a daily basis. So if you're looking for that type of content, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you don't miss out in the future. Quick update on the numbers. You guys and gals have been crushing it. We're hitting all-time highs on the channel. And again, I know we're going to get to the content here in a second, but I just want to send a special thank you out to everyone who's supporting the channel. Everything is up across the board. We blew past 8,000 subs. The last 28 days, 283,000 views on the channel. Thank you guys so much for that. The watch time is through the roof. There were 31,100 hours of watch time over the last 28 days. That is just absolutely phenomenal, especially for such a small channel that you guys have helped us create here. 609 new subscriptions, subs to the channel in the last 28 days as well. So everything is just, I mean, it's skyrocketing. And again, it's a testament to you guys getting in the chat, talking ball, and us putting our ego, setting our ego aside. We're not going to pretend like we're bigger than we are. We're not going to pretend like we're experts or insiders, or I've been around the team and covered this and done that. It's just a bunch of fans coming together, talking ball, digging into the stats, digging into the facts, right? The facts. Facts don't care about our feelings, and talking about everything Green Bay Packers. So thanks to everybody in the chat. And I see all the regulars in here: Jen Wright, Andy Dubs, Mike Z, everyone. I know there's way too many to mention here. I probably shouldn't even try to do it. Nick McSwain always in here first. The Boz in-house, always been kind to the channel. You guys have been here since day one. Greatly appreciate everybody. Adam as well, the Adam Block. Thank you guys for jumping in and talking ball. Let's waste no more time. Let's get into it. We've got information to cover on the newest interview here for the Green Bay Packers defense coordinator position. And it is, I've always got to write these timestamps down. I apologize for the awkwardness, and I apologize for the voice. Boy, oh boy, we got a storm blowing through. Tomorrow, we're supposed to be in the 50s, and then we're going to get back into the negatives again. And I think we're expecting 2 feet of snow, somewhere between 1 to 2 feet of snow. So the voice went out again. just bear with it. I apologize. It's bad enough y'all got to deal with a redneck accent along the way. But actually, let me hit this super chat here real quick before we get started. Boz with the super. Thank you, Blaze. Says congrats on 8K and all your success. Hey, our success, Boz. And thank you for always being generous to the channel, man. You guys are awesome. You guys and gals are it's pretty cool, man, to kind of jump in here, go live on a daily basis. And it seems like every day there's someone else that gets added to the group, right? There's someone else who subs to the channel, someone else who's commenting regularly. It's just really, really cool, man. And I think it's a testament to everybody in the chat. You guys always keep it respectful. You welcome other opinions because you know if somebody gets in the chat and they're disrespectful, they're just trying to troll like these guys on Twitter. It's amazing how big accounts you have, these big accounts you have. You never hear from them unless they disagree. They never like a tweet. They never retweet anything. It's just, oh, what did he say today? Well, I'll leave that one alone. Oh, I disagree today. Let me jump in there and talk. Let me jump in there and comment. It's amazing how the so-called big fish have so much to say on small accounts, right? Get the hell out of here with that. I love the fact that in the comments here, we've got people constantly that's, hey, I respectfully disagree. I push back a little bit there, but we're always trying to be respectful to each other and give our opinions. So thank you so much, Boz. Appreciate you, buddy. All right, now let's get into it. Let's jump into the breaking news of the day, and that is the Packers are slated to interview former Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon for their defensive coordinator opening. I see the super chats, guys. Appreciate you. We will hit those after this segment. Thank you all so much. Get them in, and I promise I will cover them. So this interview, boy, oh boy, I don't know how to feel about it. And I want to get your all's take because, again, this is one of those things that it's easy to look at Jonathan Gannon and go, man, he was a bad head coach, right? It's easy to look at Jonathan Gannon and also say he's quirky, right? Like, listen, I'm going to say something. He may very well be the Packers' next DC. If I were to try to find a negative in this coaching candidate, okay, it would be that I question his authenticity at times. You guys know this is the problem with having cameras in the building and recording stuff behind the scenes. You've seen several awkward exchanges between Jonathan Gannon and his team. And I think it's safe to say that the message he was sending to his team as a head coach, it kind of fell on deaf ears, right? They did not have any success. He's obviously got fired, got relieved of his duties. Now, I kind of thought the same thing about Nick Sirianni early. He seemed kind of quirky. If you guys watch the McAfee show, they talk about it all the time. They have Ty actually imitate him. They actually did a thing on Jonathan Gannon as well where it was like, that felt a little awkward. That felt a little staged, a little weird. AJ Hawk talked about it. He's been in the NFL locker rooms. And he's just like, that wouldn't go over well with the team, essentially is what they were saying, right? Now, Nick Sirianni ended up being authentic. You can be quirky. You can be different. You can be weird. You kidding me? You guys are watching this weirdo's channel every day. Everybody's weird in their own right, but you better be authentic. Coach John Madden used to say all the time, I've read a couple books on Madden and obviously watched every documentary under the sun. He said, the one thing you can't be as a coach is phony. Because if you're a phony, if you're a fake, people will see right through it. Your players will see right through it, and you will never have that locker room. It'll never happen. So with all that being said, is he authentic? Is he quirky? I don't know. Let's dig into the details of his coaching history. Obviously, Mike Garafolo broke the news. The Packers slated to interview Arizona Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon for their defensive coordinator job this week. Sources say Gannon has interest from multiple teams as a DC, notably the Cowboys, who interviewed him today. All right, so there you go. It's Jonathan Gannon. There's other teams that are interested as well. Let's talk about his career. We always like to go back to the playing career, okay? What experience did he have as a player? Sometimes that kind of determines whether a team will take you serious or not as well, right? It's hard to take orders from a coach who's never been in the trenches, who's never built up the injuries, who's never had to sacrifice their body, who's never knew what it was like with the game on the line to try to make a play on the field at the highest level, right? Like Mike McDaniel, I think it's pretty much all but done. He's getting the offensive coordinator spot with the Chargers out there with Coach Harbaugh in LA with the Chargers. He's never played the game at any level. I don't think he ever played college ball. I don't believe. I could be wrong. That's a guy who's had some success at this level. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but I do think there's an added benefit to having a guy who's played football. Let's talk about Gannon. He was a standout three-sport athlete in high school before his playing career was cut short in college. So this is two candidates this year, maybe all three. I don't know about Christian Parker. Two candidates whose career was cut short because I think it is all three cut short because of injuries. High school, he attended St. I'm going to screw this up. Ignatius in Cleveland. So he's a Cleveland guy, Ohio boy, where he won state championships in basketball and track. All right. He was an all-state defensive back. So he played defensive back. That's the root of his background as a football player / coach. College from 01 to 02, he played safety at the University of Louisville. So he made it to fairly big school, right? His injury, though, however, his playing career ended in 2002 following a severe hip injury suffered during his sophomore season. So injury cut him short. And you know the old saying, those who can't teach, right? If you can't physically handle the workload of being a football player, you're probably going to want to teach / coach, right? So coaching career, early years from 03 to 2011. Following his injury, he immediately transitioned into coaching and scouting ranks. He was with Louisville 03 through 05, served as a student assistant while finishing his degree, stayed in Louisville in 2006, but he's promoted to graduate assistant on Bobby Petrino's staff. Boy, that's a name. You guys don't know about Bobby Petrino, Lord have mercy. Atlanta Falcons in 2007, he was the defensive quality control coach. That was his first NFL role. And then he moved on to the St. Louis Rams in 09 through 11. Spent 3 seasons on the scouting side, serving as a college scout in 09 and a pro scout from 2010 through 2011. All right. So that's kind of how he broke into the pros, spending 3 seasons on the scouting side, serving as a college scout in 09 and the pro scout in 2010 and 2011. Moving on to his coaching career as an NFL assistant from 2012 to 2020. Gannon spent nearly a decade establishing himself as one of the premier defensive back coaches in the league. Tennessee Titans from 12 and 13 served as the defensive assistant and quality control coach. He was with the Vikings from 14 through 17. He was the assistant defensive backs coach under Mike Zimmer, very aggressive play caller on defense, obviously. He was instrumental in the development of Xavier Rhodes and Harrison Smith during a period where the Vikings boasted a top 5 defense. So that's very interesting. As Harrison Smith's career is starting to wind down and come to an end, this seems to give a little bit of credit to the fact that our boy Jonathan Gannon was the defensive backs coach there under Mike Zimmer and kind of coaching Harrison Smith up. You know, we always try to tie a player to specific position that these coaches may have coached along their way. In Indianapolis from 2018 to 2020, he was the defensive backs coach under Frank Reich. He helped the Colts secondary become a disciplined, high takeaway unit, contributing to 2 playoff berths in 3 years. Now, he moved on to bigger and better things in 2021, all right? It says Gannon's rise led him to a Super Bowl appearance and his first head coaching opportunity. He was with the Philadelphia Eagles from 21 to 22. He was the defensive coordinator in 2022. His defense finished second in the NFL in total yards and led the league with historic 70 sacks, helping lead the team to the Super Bowl that year. All right. So, with all that being said, as a defensive coordinator, his highest accolade in 2022, his defense finished second in the NFL in total yards and led the league with a historic 70 sacks. Again, defensive backs coach, defensive backs minded. What's that have to do with sacks? Pressure, pick, coverage, sack. If you're playing great coverage on the backside, especially in an aggressive front, if that's what he was doing in Philadelphia, like he learned under Mike Zimmer, maybe he wasn't as aggressive in Philadelphia. We know the league's cyclical and things are constantly changing. That good coverage on the backside probably led to a good chunk of those 70 sacks that year. Now, that got him the head coaching job at the Arizona Cardinals. Let's talk about the bad part here. As a head coach, he finished 4 and 13 in 2023 while managing the recovery of quarterback Kyler Murray. In 2024, he showed significant improvement with an 8-9 record, remaining in playoff contention until late in the season. 2025, after a 2-0 start, the team suffered from key injuries and finished 3 and 14, leading to his departure in January of 2026. So that's kind of what happened in Arizona. Listen, the defense, we're going to talk about the Arizona defensive rankings. I want to throw this out here, guys. Just because they were ranked bad in defense while he was the head coach in Arizona doesn't mean he's going to be a bad defensive coordinator, okay? It doesn't mean it would be a bad pick, right? You guys are probably catching the tone of my voice. I'm not as excited about Jonathan Gannon as a defensive coordinator as I am maybe a Christian Parker or a Durante Jones so far of the 3 that we're interviewing. You guys know I've got my favorites. Brian Flores, absolutely. Raheem Morris, probably towards the top. Jim Leonard, obviously nobody can interview with him yet. or move along in that process, I should say, until Denver's eliminated. Maybe that'll happen this Sunday when they play the New England Patriots at 3 p.m. Eastern. But I imagine he's going to get quite a few interviews for sure. With all that being said, this isn't my favorite candidate, but I want to be clear. Just because he was a bad head coach does not mean he's a bad DC. Okay, we always got to. Because I mean, Jeff Hafley did not take Boston College to Kurt Signetti levels of success, right? Didn't even sniff it. Some would say he was at head coach at Boston College. He comes back to the NFL as a DC, dominated last year, right? This year took a little bit of a step back, depending on what stats you want to look at and whether or not you want to take into consideration the injuries that occurred. But I think it's just worth mentioning. All right, let's go through the rankings real quick. Where did Arizona's defensive rankings fall this year? Defensive scoring, points per play allowed, they were 28th compared to Green Bay's 10th best. Not a good comp, right? Total defensive yards per play allowed, they finished 23rd. The Cardinals did. The Packers finished tied for 7th in total yards per play allowed. Okay, so that would be a downgrade if you got the same result. Not saying you would, but it's the most recent numbers we have to go off of for Jonathan Gannon. Passing defense, yards per pass attempt allowed, he finished 23rd in that category, tied for 23rd with Carolina. The Packers finished tied for 9th best, so a significant decrease, right? Run defense, yards per carry allowed, the Cardinals finished 19th, all right? Or I think they're tied for 19th, if I remember correctly. Yeah, tied for 19th with several teams at 4.4 yards per carry allowed. The Packers finished 11th. So far, none of these categories are better than the Packers in terms of, statistical ranking. Takeaways, they finished 20th in takeaways, all right, with averaging 1.1 takeaways per game. Green Bay finished tied for 24th at 0.9 takeaways per game. So that's one statistic that they were better than the Packers at last year. If you were to remove the name, remove the coaching background and say this defensive-minded head coach coached this ranked defense, I think we would always say, no, not interested. However, you've got to take into consideration what he did in Philadelphia with that defense out there. Now, it's also worth taking into consideration what Howie Roseman has done with that roster, right? They've built a bully on defense. So the fact that you've had multiple defensive coordinators have success with Howie Roseman's roster, that says a lot, right? Like maybe that was a fluke when he was in Philly. I do like the fact that he's been coaching for so long. That's quite a bit of experience for someone who appears to be somewhat of a young coach, right? But he did get right into coaching after he had the injury there in college. Let's talk about scheme real quick. What kind of coverage did the Arizona Cardinals run? Well, first of all, EPA per drop back, they were horrible. A positive 0.16, that's like 7th or 8th worst in the league, okay? Tied for 7th or 8th worst in the league. Now, here is what they ran. They ran cover 4 25% of the time. So again, is he a Fangio-style coach? He coached under Zimmer, right? Some would say he does bring a little bit of Fangio to the Zimmer, type approach. I know this. He was tied for the most quarters call in the league this year in terms of if he was calling the plays, whether he was calling the plays or not on defense. I think we would all agree it was his scheme. It was his game plan, right? Whatever they did run in Arizona in order to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish on defense. So 25% of the time they were in cover 4. 27% of the time they were in cover 3. So they ran cover 3 more than they ran cover 4. But as we know, diving into quarters coverage, along with the Fangio coaching tree, along with the Legion of Boom coaching tree, which Robert Saleh was a big part of. If you guys listen to the Play Caller podcast, they specifically talked on there how many teams thought that they were playing quarters coverage when they were actually playing cover 3 because they kept the safeties up top and they played cover 3 buzz where they would buzz a safety into the box. So it felt like quarters because they had a little match principle with the 2 or the 3 on the buzz side where that safety would actually carry if that guy went vert. So sometimes the end result ends up looking like quarters match when it ended up being cover 3 buzz match. That makes sense. So again, 27% of the time cover 3. They ran the most cover 4 at 25% of the time in the league. And then next would be cover one man, middle field close, single high safety, man coverage across the board. Okay. And then next after that, that's at 15%. Next after that would be cover two zone or match at 14% of the time. Then 7% of the time they played cover six, which is a hybrid of cover two, cover four. It's quarter, quarter, half. They ran that 7% of the time. Then it would shift to cover zero blitz, a goose blitz, where no safeties on the shelf, very aggressive, man coverage across the board, Mike Zimmer type look, Brian Flores type look, right? And then 1% of the time was cover two man. So again, you're going to get a coach that probably believes in quarters a lot more than maybe others do in that regard. If you were to compare that, how much did we run cover four this year with the Packers? We ran it 14% of the time. Arizona ran it 25% of the time. We ran cover three 32% of the time. They ran it 27% of the time. So you would probably see a significant increase in quarters coverage and a little bit of a decrease in cover three. Everything else looks very similar in my opinion here. Yeah. Maybe the only other thing is you'd see far less cover six, right? And far more a little less cover two. So you'd see less cover six to the tune of maybe 11% if he called the game exactly how he did in Arizona. We know everything changes from year to year, though. That's never going to stay the same in that regard. So there you go. That's your breakdown on Jonathan Gannon, the most recent interview for the Green Bay Packers for their defensive coordinator spot. I'm curious to know if you guys are watching this video back later. Let us know in the comments. How do you feel about Jonathan Gannon potentially being the Packers DC? Do you approve? Do you disapprove of it? I got a poll question up here. I'll give you the update on the poll real quick right now of the three. Actually, we'll hold that off. Okay? I'll hold that off for a separate segment of the three that's been interviewed already. So let us know in the comments. You're watching this video back later. How do you feel about Jonathan Gannon? Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified when we go live in the future. And appreciate you guys supporting the channel. All right, let's get these super chats. And then once we get through the super chats, we're going to dive into the next topic, which are a flurry of roster moves. Again, Boz with the super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. Say congrats on the 8K and all your success. Our success, Boz. Thank you for the support, man. Mike Z with the super. Thank you, pal. He says, Gannon has Super Bowl experience with multiple schemes under his belt. 8,000 and moving to 10K and beyond. So grateful for PTAA. We're grateful for you, Mike. You're always encouraging, man. Always positive, upbeat in here. I really, really appreciate you being part of the community, man. Thank you so much for the super chat. Mike Witt with the super. Congrats on all the channel success, Clayton. I think my number one choice would be Jim Leonard, but Christian is very intriguing to me also. I have noticed they are interviewing DB coaches so far. I noticed that too, Mike, which kind of makes me wonder, do they feel pretty good about keeping DeMarcus Covington? Because think about that. If DeMarcus Covington stays in-house, you got your defensive line / run game coordinator already in place. You got Derek Ansley, if he don't get a job, your secondary coach already in place. And then you bring in a defensive back-minded, obviously DC. It's still a passing game, right? The most important aspect of our defense is to stop the pass. Now, I think run defense is real close to, way closer than I think most fans feel like it is in terms of importance. But I've noticed that as well, man. Everybody are DB coaches, right? Christian Parker, Durante Jones, Jonathan Gannon, everybody has that DB background. We haven't seen a defensive line background or a linebacker background, right? Like Zach Orr was somebody we obviously interviewed in the last DC interviewing cycle. And I think he had linebacker experience, right? That one kind of stuck out like a sore thumb a little bit. Joe Barry was a linebackers coach, right? That was our previous DC. So maybe that's what it is, Mike. Maybe we're still a little gun shy from having a linebacker coach or something other than a DB-minded coach. So thank you for the Superman. Great point there. And then Mike went on to say, who knows, Gannon might be like Josh McDaniels, terrible head coach, but awesome coordinator. The thing with Arizona is he didn't have any players in Arizona. Yeah, other than Budda Baker, who did he have on defense, right? So, I mean, I'm sure he had good players, but great players, I don't know, right? I'm trying to think who's their best player on defense out there. Only one that ever came to mind was Budda Baker. I don't even know if he's still on a roster, to be honest with you. So that's a great point, Mike. Appreciate the super chat. Thanks, everybody, for the support there, man. You guys are awesome. All right. We grab a timestamp. Let's move forward now to the next topic here, and that's a flurry of roster moves that the Green Bay Packers have made over the last 24 hours. And listen, you may look at these and say, this ain't a big deal, Clayton. This ain't a big deal at all. I think we're kind of maneuvering and shuffling a little bit of the bottom of the roster. You just freed up some cap space here. We'll talk about what it means. But the breaking news here with Packers having made several roster moves heading into free agency is this right off the top. The Packers released Trayvon Diggs. People are going to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. We brung him in to play one meaningful snap in the playoffs. That's it. Like, why did we even pick him up? I think you ended up paying $500,000 for his services, a little bit of an insurance policy if you got really, really banged up in the playoffs. I agree, guys. If your stance is that Trayvon Diggs should have played in that playoff game, I completely agree. I think he should have started that playoff game, whether it was for Nixon or Valentine. That's just my opinion. The coaches, Jeff Hafley, don't put this on Matt LaFleur. Jeff Hafley specifically made the decision as the defensive coordinator, and he's the one who calls the shots on who's playing and who isn't on defense. He chose not to play Trayvon Diggs. I don't understand it. I don't know what you had to lose, right? But this makes sense that they cut him, and I'm going to explain why. Okay, in a multitude of tweets here. So Tom Pelissero confirms Trayvon Diggs is subject to waivers. If he is claimed, which is highly unlikely, the waiver assignment would be deferred until after the Super Bowl. If he clears waivers, he can be signed immediately as a free agent. So essentially, all signs are pointing towards Trayvon Diggs hitting unrestricted free agency, right? He's going to be a free agent. So the Packers had a decision to make here. I think I put it in a tweet here. Yeah, here we go. The Packers released Trayvon Diggs, freeing up $15 million in cap space. Diggs will now test the market and most likely give the Packers a chance to match this offer. Now, what does this mean? Okay, you could carry him for $15 million against the cap, or you can cut him loose. Guys, he cleared waivers. No one else was willing to sign him, right? So that tells you the market isn't scorching hot for him. Now, will someone else sign him and outbid the Packers? It's possible, right? There's always a little bit of that. Well, they seen Trayvon Diggs in practice. Maybe they didn't like what they seen, you know? I know that one game against Minnesota, and granted, it was just one game. To me, he looked fluid. This is going to be such a casual fan comment, but I'm going to say it anyway because I feel it in my heart. When I watched the tape, when I watched him move and jump the route underneath and go across the field and make the tackle, I seen way more fluidity. I seen way more aggressiveness. I seen way more confidence in just the way he backpedaled and carried himself, whether he was playing a curl flat or looking to carry a receiver down the field. He's got receiver-like hands. He's a bigger body, corner. That's the thing that stood out to me too. To me, he looked like the best cornerback on the field against the Vikings. And we started our corners against the Vikings, if I remember correctly, right? So, again, it's just one game. Maybe I wouldn't feel like that if he played 5 games and we had 5 games of tape with the Packers and Jeff Hafley and the Packers defense. But felt like he was a good pickup. So now you got to ask yourself, how much are you willing to pay for Trayvon Diggs, right? How much are you willing to pay for Trayvon Diggs in terms of getting him into Green Bay on a free agent deal? The market's going to determine this. I would have been okay with the $15 million in cap if you did some kind of restructure, but we knew this was never going to happen, right? So freeing up the $15 million is huge. What if you can get him back on a 1-year prove it deal for $8 million, most of it guaranteed, something like that. Or, maybe you do a 3-year, $30 million deal with $10 million guaranteed, where it's a 3-year deal, but it's really just a 1-year deal. Maybe you go that route, right? I wouldn't be opposed to that. And then at the end of the year, you reassess and go, all right, we were only on the hook for $10 million. So we'll just go ahead and eat our cap penalty there. It was a 1-year, $10 million deal, and we move on. Or if he hits, you got him under contract for 3 years. Maybe that's the best offer he can get too, is something, an offer like that. Who knows? Maybe somebody come in and break the bank too. And they go, hey man, we had a real high draft grade on this guy. We don't think Dallas utilized him correctly with all the different defensive coordinators they've rolled in and out of that building. Maybe they'll be willing to give him, 3 years, $40 million with $20 million guaranteed. I don't know. Time will tell. But again, this doesn't mean Trayvon Diggs won't be a Packer moving forward. It simply means he's probably going to get to test the market unless somebody picks him up on waivers. So that is a little bit of breaking news there. And then Tom Silverstein said, just to kind of confirm everything, he says Packers released Trayvon Diggs and signed defensive lineman Jaden. I've heard people say Crometti. I've heard people say Crumedy. Let's just call him Crometti. And quarterback Kyle McCord to reserve future contracts. Diggs never got a chance to show himself, but he's a free agent and now could always be re-signed. His $50 million cap charge goes away. Now, with all that being said, let's talk about these newest additions. Defensive lineman Jaden Crumedy, okay? Starting with him. So he's been in the league. He was drafted in 2024 as a 6th-round pick, the 201st selection, okay? He played for Carolina for 2 years. And here are his PFF grades. In 2024, a 42.5, okay? In 2025, he only played 44 snaps, but it was a 64.8. So listen, this is a guy that obviously the Packers probably had at least a 7th-round grade on, and they said, hey, it'd be worth it to take a flyer on this guy, right? That's why they picked him up, future contract. You now kind of have his rights for 2 or 3 years now. You guys go dig into the rules yourself. I don't want to misrepresent that. But this is just one of those dudes, 6'5", 305. You can't coach size, right? He's only 25 years old. Maybe you bring him in, and this is a guy that can compete for a practice squad spot. I wouldn't expect this cat to get significant playing time, but it does tell me that Goody probably seen a little more value in him than other people. Now, where did he fall in the consensus big board? Again, he was drafted the 201st selection. The big board actually had him at 211. So he was a little bit of a reach if you were to treat the consensus big board as gospel. I'm not suggesting you do that, but obviously he had a little bit of a late push there right before the draft. He moved up 2 spots according to the consensus big board data. So maybe they were hearing some rumblings like, hey, he's going to go real soon. Let's swoop in there and get him and take a flyer on him. Again, for a 6th-round pick, what are you expecting? You're not expecting this guy to come in and be an absolute home run, right? So that's the newest defensive lineman we added. Now, let's talk about the quarterback we just added, Kyle McCord. All right. He's 23 years old, 6'3", 220 pounds. He came out of Syracuse. He was a 6th-round selection by the Philadelphia Eagles, the 183rd overall pick. Philly's got a good GM, guys. I think we would all agree he knows how to draft. I think they've constructed a good roster. Hell, they've won, I think two Super Bowls under that GM now, if I remember correctly, and most recently last year, putting it together. So quarterback evaluation, I think they do a pretty good job at it. So now what this tells me is Goody probably had a decent draft grade on Kyle McCord, right? Maybe not a 6th-round grade. Maybe he had a 7th-round grade. Hell, maybe he had a 4th-round grade, but he had other holes he had to fill, and there were other players at positions of needs in the same current tier when he was selecting. That could have been the case as well, right? So maybe that's why, they didn't go after and take a swing on Kyle McCord. But when you look at the consensus big board, he was 132 overall in the consensus big board coming out of Syracuse, okay? So you take that into consideration, he was drafted 183rd. The consensus big board had him at 132, all right? Our PTA big board had him at 135. So we were really, really close after we put all of our data in, and you see all the factors across the board in our PTA big board. You're talking about Greg Cosell bonuses or no bonuses. You're talking about RAS score bonuses. You're talking about consensus big board data, PFF big board data, PFF grades, Dane Brugler's approach, and his assessment of him, all these things, Daniel Jeremiah, everybody being thrown into the big board, and he landed at 135 with the consensus big board having him at 132. I feel like that's a more realistic grade on him, maybe than where he was selected in the 6th round at 183. So what does that mean? Does that mean he's going to get a bunch of playing time? I don't know. Does it mean they're going to try to make him the backup? What it tells me is Malik Willis is probably gone. I think we would all agree. Unless for some reason the market falls flat on Malik. I do not think it will. But if it does fall flat and we can get Malik back, I think everybody would want Malik at a decent price as your backup, right? To have arguably the best backup quarterback in the National Football League would be more than worth it. But if Malik Willis walks in free agency, you're now filling that void. You're filling that room with young potential replacements, right? And these are guys that obviously Goody had a decent draft grade on that said, hey, it'd be worth to bring in. Desmond Ridder, if you guys will remember, the consensus big board had Malik Willis 11th overall. Desmond Ridder was around 30 or 32, okay? So obviously Malik Willis fell in the draft. He should have been taken pretty high. I think we would all agree if you get someone who knows how to coach up a quarterback, to work with him, it would be a good pick, in my opinion. And I think another team is going to pay him big money this year. So Kyle McCord, was significantly lower, right? Now you're comparing way different draft classes in terms of years, but Kyle McCord landed at 132. Desmond Ritter was in the 30s. Malik Willis was ranked 11th. Desmond Ritter will probably have the edge over Kyle McCord, I would imagine. However, get him in here, man. Get him in the offseason program. Let's see what we got, right? And that's going to be probably a backup for your backup, a battle for your backup quarterback position. And only time will tell who that ends up being. Also, Malik Willis, I'm kind of hoping he goes to Miami, guys. Some people were reporting yesterday, or there were rumors swirling. You guys do your own research on this, that Jason Vrabel, our wide receiver coach, might end up being the offensive coordinator for Miami. I don't know how much truth there is to that. He's got more experience as a NFL coach than Sean Mannion, who's our quarterback coach. But I don't know, man. If we got to lose Malik Willis, we had to lose Jeff Hafley. If we got to lose Malik Willis, I think it'd be kind of fun to keep an eye on and root for the Miami Dolphins, as we'll call them, Green Bay Southeast, right? Be kind of cool. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on there as well. But with that being said, if you guys are watching this video back later, let us know in the comments, how do you feel about the roster moves? How do you feel about Trayvon Diggs being cut? Do you think that the Packers will be able to get him back at a discounted price? What do you think about the D lineman we picked up? What do you think about Kyle McCord? Let us know in the comments how you feel about these roster moves. I think there are a flurry of good roster moves. I really do. I think it was a good cap move by Goody to free up that $15 million. And I think you're kind of building the bottom of this roster a little bit, getting set for free agency. Make sure you cover all your bases. And we got a good influx of young talent on the bottom of the roster. Now let's go out and, please, for the love of all things holy, try to get a little bit older this year so we ain't got to go into the league, go in next year with the youngest team in the league again. But let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future live streams. All right, let's get into real quick the super chats, and then I want to hit on that youth the poll question, and we'll talk about the youth of the roster before we wrap up. We'll make a pretty good time. Let's hit these super chats. Here we go. Mike Witt with the super says, who knows? Gannon might be like Josh McDaniel. Okay, we hit that one. Got it. All right. Mike Witt again. Whoever gets the DC will do good. More importantly, I don't want Nixon on the team after his complete no-show the second half of the season. It was a tough look, man. Mike, I can't disagree with you, bub. It was a tough look. That whole play at the goal line, man, and you guys know, I say on this show all the time, like, if I wouldn't say it to a player or a person's face, I'm not saying it on social media or on a podcast. But man, I feel like I was actually a lot nicer than most people on Twitter when they seen that clip and it went viral. Everybody was tweeting out, get him off my team, get him off my team. There's just some things you can't put on tape, and that was a tough look, man. I'm not saying you got to go in there and sacrifice your entire career to try to stop that. I'm not saying you got to go in there and do something stupid and just throw your head in there and do whatever you got to take. Although we would like to see someone be willing to sacrifice themselves for their team, right, for the betterment of the team. But to just do the little half skip and jump out of the way, Goody, that's one decision that would sour me on Goody really, really quick this offseason. If we bring Keyshawn Nixon back, that's going to be tough for me to defend. It's going to get real loud here in the comments, and I'm going to have to say I agree, because that's one of those situations where you cannot have a player on your roster that plays. And on top of that, runs your mouth in the media, right? Gets a big bullseye on your back. And then he puts that on tape. And then in the exit interview, he said he hit all his goals this year. I'm like, Was the Super Bowl not a goal? What are we doing? Again, maybe I'm being too critical, but I understand where you're coming from, Mike. And in the last super chat from Mike says, I think Diggs will be back at a cheaper deal. The fact that him and Mike are extremely close might help with that too. I think it definitely will help with that, Mike. No doubt about it. And that's a great point, right? If he gets an equal offer, and that's why I was saying the Packers will probably get a chance to match. If he goes out and hits the market, the Packers say, hey, make sure you bring your best offer back, okay? We may match it. If he gets an offer for, let's say it's a 1 year, $6 million deal, right? And he comes back to Green Bay and says, hey, we got 1 year, $6 million. I'd be okay with the Packers giving him 1 year, $7 million, right? If he comes back with a 3 year, $18 million with 5 fully guaranteed, right? Then I'd be okay with the Packers going 3 years, $20 million with $7 million guaranteed. You know what I'm saying? And if you get close to that offer, right, I think he's going to look up and go, yeah, I'm going to play with Micah, right? So It's a great point. Great point, Mike. I think we're in good standing there. I think there's a chance, unless someone overpays. And listen, there are some bad GMs in the league that might be willing to overpay for Trayvon Diggs. If that happens and somebody goes out there and gives him 18 million per, with 12 million guaranteed, hey, it is what it is. I don't know if it's worth that risk to bring back in, but it is an opportunity, however, to make this roster a little bit older, like we talked about the Packers should do. Again, I'm not asking Brian Gutekunst to give us, the 16th oldest roster, right? I'm just saying, can we not be the youngest just once? Just once. Over the last 3 years, that's what we had to do big. And listen, I've done more research. I think it's pretty much slated, guaranteed. There is no team in the history of the National Football League that has won the Super Bowl with the youngest roster in the league. Just hasn't happened. Okay. So with all that being said, I had an exchange on X earlier today. I won't mention the name. I'm not trying to get on here and call people out by name. But if you guys follow me X, you've seen the exchange. I put a tweet out earlier. Let me just throw the tweet up here. Well, I can't because you'll see who it is. All right. I said, fun fact, in the 60-year history of the Super Bowl, no NFL team has won a championship while fielding the youngest roster. I'm not saying Goody should be fired, but the fact that roughly 20% of the polls that were answered of Packer fans were ready to fire LaFleur while giving Goody a pass is wild. You want to know why quote, Matt LaFleur can't get these guys ready for big games, or, quote, there's stupid penalties being committed, or the blown assignments that we've seen. Maybe it's because we're fielding the least experienced roster in the league. For 3 years in a row, we broke camp with the youngest roster, and I've said, well, boys, going to be hard to win the Lombardi this year. I say it every year. You guys watch the show. And I always say, I'm holding out hope. Maybe we can be the first team, right? Maybe we can do this. I hope it's the case. But the reality is it's never happened. Now, it's being mentioned that the 2014 Seahawks might have been the youngest. I went back and ran it when they broke camp. They did not have the youngest roster. Maybe by the end of the season, they were closer, right? But anyway, I put that tweet out with this other tweet that came from San Francisco Data Niners is the name of the tweet, or the name of the account. It says, which teams fielded the youngest and oldest rosters in 2025? Green Bay, and this is what it says, offense and defensive snaps age by the end of the season. Because some people think it's just about, well, it doesn't mean that that was the youngest players on the field. We got more experience with the players that are getting snaps, right? Not the case. Green Bay 25.88, all right, was the youngest in terms of the snaps that the players on the field, all right? Second was the New York Jets at 25.98. Third was the Seattle Seahawks, a playoff team, right? 26.56. So this is kind of weighted, showing who actually took the snaps. The Packers still were the youngest team. Now, we had a response to that tweet that said the Seahawks had the third youngest roster and are hosting the NFC Championship. This is always overblown. Now, again, I won't mention the name, but it is funny how this person never likes a tweet, never retweets a tweet, right? The only time I hear from him, he replies with negative comments, disagreeing with me. I think it's hilarious that somehow, some way, he always finds my tweets. Interesting. Okay. I never comment on his tweets. I never respond to anything he tweets, right? What would you guys classify that as? If you've got somebody who's got a much larger account and you never hear from him ever, right? And then all of a sudden he pops up from time to time disagreeing with your information, your tweet, your opinion. What would you guys classify that as? I think that's called a troll, right? It's called a troll. It is what it is. J. Cole says stalking. Mike said troll. Right. And it's like, bro, you have a huge following, right? It's starting to get a little bit creepy that of the, however many people that tweet about the Packers, you always seem to find my tweet. I responded to one earlier this year, or it was last year. J.J. McCarthy, the Vikings drafted J.J. McCarthy. And I asked, you guys know how I operate on social media. And even on here, we just did a poll question. We're going to talk about the poll results here in a minute. The way I utilize this channel in my social media is I like to ask Packer fans, how do y'all feel about this? Right? Like, what do you think? And throw a poll question up and kind of get a true feel for what the majority of the fan base thinks about certain topics, right? That's how I operate. That's why I use the channel, right? Um, it's just wild that people find a way to try to, steer that into the conversation of, oh, you're stupid. Oh, you're stupid. Right. So here's the other thing. The JJ McCarthy tweet was, Packer fans, how do we feel about JJ McCarthy going to Minnesota? Do you think he's going to be a good player or not? That was kind of the tweet. This asshat, you know what he responded with? Who cares? Dynamite drop in, Monty. That broadcast school really paying off there, Housecat. Like, let me ask you a question. Where the hell did I tag your dumb ass in the tweet? When have you ever had me at you and go, hey, I'd love to know your opinion on this situation? Doesn't happen, does it, tough guy? So why are you following me around on X, constantly replying to stuff? Is there something going on behind the scenes that maybe I don't know about? Is there something there? It's one of two things. Either you're a hating ass troll or you got a crush on me, both of which I'm not interested in engaging, to be quite honest. So anyway, shouldn't have got into it, but my response to that tweet is real simple. I think I actually threw it up in a regular tweet too. I says, you can keep saying it's overblown, but the facts are the facts. No team has ever done it. Maybe Seattle becomes the first this year, but burying your head in the sand like it doesn't matter is simply ignoring what gives you the best chance to win. And I said, also, my research is showing of the final 8 playoff teams, they broke camp youngest to oldest at, right? And Seattle was the 23rd youngest team, with the Broncos, I think, being 11th. And listen, was it actually when you built the 53? Was it actually going into camp? Was it halfway through the season? Who gives a rat's ass? The point is, again, the original tweet, and this is what I alluded back to. I said, this is the type of pushback you always get. You can keep saying it's overblown, blah, 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 right? I said, oh, wait. Or I said, maybe Seattle becomes the first this year. Oh, wait, they aren't the youngest, which is what the original tweet said. Burying your head in the sand and simply ignored it. What gives you the best chance to win? I said, if I'm working a 60-year business model, which is what the league is, it's a business model, right? It's a sports business model. If I'm working a business model that has 60 years of experience and I'm looking for these type of trends and giving my business team / organization the best shot possible, that's the point of the tweet. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. And we know what this is. We've seen it time and time again. When someone has a big following and they see someone else starting to get a little, we read the numbers off to you on the channel, right? You guys have blown this channel up. You've blown my Twitter account up. It's unbelievable. When I got on Twitter 3 years ago, if I'd have thought we'd have 18,000 followers of Packer fans just wanting to talk ball, I would have said, you're smoking crack, right? If you'd have told me that we would be averaging 283,000 views a month just talking ball and giving our opinion and having Tim and Jacob and Emilio's opinion, Packer fans who, by the way, listened to the show, and I said, I want more Packer fans involved. Let's get their voice on here. That's why they became a part of the channel, part of the show. That was the whole purpose, right? Like that was everything. If you told me we would have that success, I'd have said you're crazy. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's that we got a group of people out there that think they're the gatekeepers of Packer fan community, right? And they, look at this little guy here. My goodness. Let me chime in and tell him why he's wrong. If I could buy you for what you're worth and sell you for what you thought you were worth, I'd be a freaking billionaire. So it is what it is. I'll say this. I guess the only thing to do is to block. And of course, when you block, then comes the quote tweet where they get all their little simps together. Hey, guys, come comment. Look at this guy block me. Come. Oh, yeah, what a loser. What a this, what a that. That's the whole purpose of it. So that's why I quote tweeted back and just listen. You're trying to take this and make it sound like I said that you don't stand a chance, right, to compete in the National Football League if you have a young roster. That's essentially what you did here. Third youngest roster hosting the NFC Championship. This is way overblown. It's not what I said. I said in the 60-year history, there's not a team that's been the youngest that's won the Super Bowl. And if there is, correct me if I'm wrong. I've tried multiple AI searches. I've tried multiple databases trying to find the youngest team that year that won the Super Bowl and couldn't find it. I'm simply saying, why don't we press in? Let's make us the fifth youngest. Let's get a few more key veterans in here. Because in one breath, you're calling for people to be fired and you're leading the pitchfork charge because this team always collapses under Matt LaFleur. They always commit penalties at stupid times. This is bad coaching. They're not prepared. They're blowing assignments. He isn't preparing them. It's like all three of those things are a direct reflection of inexperience or lack or lack of talent, or really both. That doesn't fall on the head coach if you're building a roster with people full of people with a ton of inexperience and guys that maybe aren't good enough to win these huge, crucial games. I don't know. What the hell do I know, right? Maybe I'm completely off my rocker here. All I know is the days of these are a handful of guys that kind of control the Packers, the Packers podcast and the Packers content. Those are over. Another portion of the fan base is realizing I can do this. I can talk ball. I put the three guys that helped me on this channel up against anybody. You're seeing more and more fans launch podcasts. I want to give a shout out. I know he's probably listening to the show, one of the podcast listeners. Beer Cheese Benny just launched a NASCAR show. You know how fired up I got when I heard that. Jacob was the one who told me. It was either Jacob or Emilio told me, like, hey, Beer Cheese Benny's launching a NASCAR podcast. Everybody go over there and support him. And I need to get the name of the pod exactly and the YouTube channel. I want everybody who's hearing my voice, whether you watch NASCAR or not, go subscribe to Beer Cheese Benny's new NASCAR podcast. I think it's called Nassholes. Great name, by the way. Nasoles, I believe is what it is. You should be able to find it. Small channel. They're just getting started. You're going, Clayton, why are you doing that? Why are you asking us to go sub? I don't like NASCAR. Okay, whether you like NASCAR or not, you don't have to watch the content. But how about showing support for another Packer fan? I've had people come at me on X and go, the only reason you got a following is because you're following so many people. I'm following 8,770 people on Twitter, right, on X. I've got 18,700 followers. Do you know why I'm following 18,770 people? Because I told every Packer fan, if you need a follow back, you let me know. Anything I can do to help. And then you got these other asshats that they're so focused on their ratio. Oh, I got to make sure I keep it under 8. I'm following less than 1,000 to hit 100,000 followers. Get away from me, dude. You're a selfish prick. That's what you are. So that's why I've got so many people I'm following. Anybody who's hearing my voice, if you give me a follow and you tweet at me, hey, man, can I get a follow back? Abso-freaking-lutely you can. And I would suggest don't do it in a tweet. Just DM me. That's right. The DMs are open. You can DM me anytime. Like, shoot me a direct message. Go, hey, man, can I get a follow back? I will follow 100% of you back as long as someone is not being rude, not being condescending, not always commenting with negative comments, and not doing the freaky stalker stuff that we just got through mentioning. So anyway, with all that being said, didn't plan on getting into that, but that really does chap my ass, man, where people think they're so much better than other people that's how they've got to comment and respond to stuff. So, all right, with all that being said, let's move on to one more topic. We talked about the poll question, okay? And the poll question obviously is geared around the defensive coordinator hiring process, right? So I put it up on YouTube. I'm going to throw up the Twitter poll so you guys can see it on screen, and I will read off the response, the results, if you will. Let's go ahead and refresh one more time. Bang. All right. So here is the poll question. Try to ask it the same, limited characters on different platforms, but here is the poll question. The Packers have 3 interviews in the works for their new defensive coordinator spot, all right? If you had to choose between the 3, who would be your pick for DC? So again, these are just the 3 coaches that have set up interviews with the Packers. Christian Parker, Durante Jones, Jonathan Gannon. Again, Christian Parker, the DB passing game coordinator in Philadelphia, Durante Jones, the DB passing game coordinator in Minnesota, and Jonathan Gannon, the former head coach in Arizona, I think he was the passing game coordinator in Philadelphia too, but he was definitely a DB coach, secondary coach, what have you. No, he was a DC. He was the DC in Philly. I apologize. So there are your options. So far, we got 125 votes on X. 60% say Christian Parker, 25% say Jonathan Gannon, and only 14% say Durante Jones. That's surprising. This is why I love doing these poll questions. I expected Christian Parker to win, but I thought Durante Jones would get a little more pull than Jonathan Gannon. That's really, really interesting that 25% of the people voting here said Jonathan Gannon over Durante Jones. It's very interesting. That's why we love to do this stuff. Now, over on YouTube, sometimes the poll questions are a little bit different. In here, let's see what the results are. Same question. If you had to choose between these three, who would be your pick for DC? 47% says Christian Parker. 35% says Durante Jones. 19% says Jonathan Gannon. So the YouTube poll question, we got 113 votes in here. Christian Parker still leads, right? Durante Jones is second. Jonathan Gannon's third. That's what I expected from the results. So it's obvious that our YouTube viewers are a little more lockstep with how I see stuff than maybe on X, which makes sense, right? You guys tune into the show for a reason. Maybe we see eye to eye on most things. Maybe that's what the case is. But nonetheless, those are the poll results. So I'm going to hit these super chats. We'll get ready to wrap up. I just want to give you guys a voice there and like, okay, how do you guys feel about this situation? So if we had to choose between these three, and we don't have to choose between these three. These are just the early candidates that are brought in for interviews. Christian Parker is leading the way right now out of Philadelphia in both polls. 59% on X, and again, 46% over on YouTube. So thanks to everybody who answered that poll question for us. Really, really appreciate it. So, boy, that's scary. All right, let's hit these super chats. Get out of here, guys. Appreciate everybody hanging tight. And I apologize for the rant. I don't mean to get my Irish up, as has been said in the past, but I just can't stand people that just, it just drives me crazy. All right, let's see. Let's go back to the original. I think we have one here for Mike. Whoever gets okay, we hit that one. Here we go. Mike Witt with the super chat. I think Diggs will be back at a cheaper deal. No, we hit that one. All right, Mike. So we got Mike Z with the super. The last one here says haters gonna hate 100. I appreciate the super chat, Mike. Thank you for the support, man. Yeah, it's again, man. It is what it is. I don't want to put you guys back through that tirade. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap the show up. But I greatly appreciate it, Mike. Thank you so much. It's just, we always used to sign off on the show saying, hey, man, let's go out and be the change you want to see in the world. Just be polite to people, man. Why do you got to be an ass? Why do you got to try to drag people down, right? And I think that some of these people, they got the big head and they think they can just push everybody around. This ain't social media. This is real life, right? I mean, that was social media that you comment there, but, do you bring that same energy when you meet somebody face to face? That's the question, right? I won't mention a name, but I was talking to a very, very prominent person that covers the Packers and has a very, very large following. And we had this very conversation because he's had run-ins with people in person, and they lose that energy real quick. It's like we think we can just be an ass. We can be disrespectful on social media because I've never got to deal with this person. It's not real life. I try to treat my social media like I'm having a conversation with somebody face to face, because anything otherwise, excuse my language, is just chicken shit. It is. Fishy, thanks with the super chat. Love the channel. Let's grow together. Amen, Fishy. Amen, buddy. Very well said. So with all that being said, you guys are watching this live stream back later. Let us know in the comments everything we covered. The Jonathan Gannon interview, are you on board or off board with that? The roster moves of Trayvon Diggs. How much would you give Trayvon Diggs? The poll question, make sure you get your vote in. There's still time to get your vote in there, especially on X at Packers_access. You can find that poll question. I'll go ahead and pin it at the top of the page here. Actually, yeah, it's pinned to the profile. So if you go to my profile, you don't have to follow. You don't have to follow to put your vote in. Just hop over to my profile and get your vote in, and we'll try to cover the results of that poll here in the next probably the next 24 hours. And also, we will be bringing you breaking news as we get other candidates obviously coming in to interview for DC. I have a hard time believing those are the only three candidates we're going to have in. And again, if Jim Leonard is on the short list for Matt LaFleur like he was before to be DC, we got to wait till Denver is eliminated, right? Hopefully that happens Sunday, where Jim Leonard can start to interview and we can see if the Packers are actually at least interested in hiring him once again. So Andy Dubs with the super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. He says, let's do a live show soon like we did the draft. Sounds good, buddy. Sounds good, Andy. We're going to continue to pump out content, man. I can't believe it's already Senior Bowl week. Like, we got a bunch of stuff to cover We got some other players to hit on in terms of like we need to break down. I don't think we did the Aaron Banks breakdown yet. I'm trying to remember. No, we did. Yeah, we did it last night. Yeah. So up next on the breakdown, Trayvon Diggs is going to be on the list. We already got our answer there. We know what they're doing there. The rest of them really aren't worth doing. I mean, you're talking about Xavier McKinney, Josh Jacobs, Nate Hobbs, Keyshawn Nixon, Brandon McManus. I mean, Keyshawn Nixon, we kind of had that conversation today, right? You could free up $5 million if you move on from Keyshawn. But we got a lot of stuff we can cover here in the future. Also, the draft board, guys. I spent about 2 hours last night putting data in. So you're starting to get not final grades, but a compilation of the average grade now. I'm going to go back probably today and do the consensus big board data. I like to get the consensus big board data in as soon as the college football season wraps up because it tells you what we thought of these college players immediately following the college football season as opposed to halfway through the offseason hype. We get that number in early, and then we make our adjustments for combine RAS stuff, right? And shout out to Math Bomb. I'm going to be doing the Lord's work again this year. So we'll put in the RAS information. We'll get the Greg Cosell bonuses. We'll get the Daniel Jeremiah bonuses. We'll get the All-Star Week bonuses. All that stuff will start to maneuver the board around. And there's already some guys that are really popping on the board right now. It's going to be a really, really interesting draft season. We'll be bringing you all that coverage. Mock draft galore. We'll be throwing all kinds of mock drafts up this year and doing live mock drafts here on the show where we'll have the viewers help us from time to time too. Hey, who would you take here? And we'll do a quick vote in the chat. It's a lot of fun. So you guys make sure you sub to the channel. Make sure you hit like for us. Spin those laces on that tater. And make sure you hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on future streams. We'll be back in a little bit as soon as news breaks. Appreciate everybody, all the support. Like I said, man, reading those numbers off, wasn't going, hey, look at what I did. It's look at what we did. Look at what the chat's done. Look at what the community's done, because that's what we're doing is building a community. And if you want to join our community, you can do so over at patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. If you'd rather just watch the channel, it doesn't cost a dime. It'll never cost money to watch this channel. It will always be free here on YouTube. You guys know you can support if you want to. Just you being in here talking ball is more than enough payment. So greatly appreciate everybody hanging out. We'll be back later, guys. Keep your eyes and ears to the streets in case the Packers schedule another defensive coordinator interview, or who knows, man, maybe they just jump up and make a hire real quick, right? You'll probably see some dominoes falling into place, but we'll be here every step of the way. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack, go.
Here we go. We're out.
Bye, guys.